presidential and then post-presidential, post-Trump. There's some similar challenges across all four. I want to ask you about two of them. One is these voter registration numbers, where you see in lots of states more Republicans registering, more people registering as Republicans, fewer Democrats. Obviously, independents continue to grow as well. Is your sense that that's a problem that's happening organically, or is that something that Republicans are just organized to do?
It's probably both, but I mean, you have to understand there are leading indicators of politics and there are lagging indicators. I think voter registration is a lagging indicator of the mood of the country. And, I remember starting out in politics, when young people came on the scene, and you had Jimmy Carter defining what it meant to be a Democrat and Ronald Reagan defining what it meant to be a Republican. He had a whole generation of people who entered politics becoming Republicans because all they knew was Reagan and Carter. And so part of what's going on now is, I think, an era of all people know about politics. And a lot of these people who are starting politics is Trump and Biden or Trump and Harris. So I think that this is a lagging indicator, but it reflects the disarray of the party right now. The other trend, which I think is probably even more significant, although I don't want to diminish the trends you're alluding to, particularly in the 39 states that do party registration. But you look at the swing states of Nevada and Arizona and Pennsylvania and North Carolina, and those are significant advantages that the Republicans are enjoying now. And it's both. It's people both signing up to be Republican, but also a combination of people unsigning being a Democrat. But the other trend, which I think is probably most important, are people moving to independence, away from both the political parties. And you look, particularly as you go west of the Mississippi, and you look at places like Arizona, or the overwhelming majority of people now in Arizona are not affiliated with either party. But both of those trends, I think, are significant, and there's no way I can, as a Democrat, tell you that's a good sign.
Yeah. The other challenge so many people associated with President Clinton talk about is neither party has a monopoly on the extreme wing, being influential or taking unpopular positions because of the extreme wing. But a lot of people associated with President Clinton say the party's too far left now. It's got too many unpopular positions that are too far left, and too many of our elected officials, Democrats say, are afraid to stand up to that. I tell people all the time, particularly younger people who don't recognize the resonance of this. Bill Clinton in '92 was pro-death penalty, pro-right to work, pro-welfare reform, pro-free trade, all positions that were way to the away from the base of the party. And yet he figured out a way to make those positions sellable to win the nomination, and then, of course, helped him in the general. Is that a formula that could work, and is that a necessary thing for the party's nominee in 28 to do?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of ways you can look at this that are simple. One is which of the two parties' wings are more extreme, and whichever one's acting more extreme is probably the party that's going to lose. The other, though, is, and I think this helped Clinton in 91 or 92, is how much, what's more important to a party, the activists? Is it more important to be right in their mind, or is it more important to win an election? And I think by 91, the party was so tired of losing that it was a better environment for Clinton to take on some orthodoxy and not be a slave to the constituency groups. If I could just take your four buckets for a moment, I'll just quickly. So bucket one is the present, and this is what happens when you lose elections. You have no leader. Bucket two are the midterms. And I think that the midterms will have very little to say with what happens in 2028. If you look at the two biggest midterm elections since World War II in 94, when the Republicans took the House back and over 50 House seats, and I think 7 Senate races, in 2010, when the Republicans won over 60 House seats, 7 Senate races, 10 governorships. The Republicans lost the White House 2 years later in 96 and 2012. So I don't think you should look at 2026 as any sort of tell about the future. And so your bucket three is the entire candidacy and outcome is going to be determined by who is nominated by which of these parties. And then bucket four is if Democrats take the White House back, then the person who was the nominee and elected president will define what it means to be a Democrat. If the Democrats lose in 2028, then Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will probably be defining what it means to be a Democrat for the next 4 years, because that's what the Republicans will do. Jimmy Carter was president of the United States for 4 years, but he was president of the Democratic Party from 76 until Clinton won in 92. And the reason was the Republicans made sure that Carter defined what it meant to be a Democrat.
Do you fancy any of the prospective 2028 candidates to the point where you think they should be the nominee or likely to be the nominee, or is it more unsettled in your mind than that?
This is completely unsettled. It's the silly season. None of this. It's all tactic. It's all posturing. Yeah. None of this matters. I mean, my experience, Mark, is that there are two sort of things you need to do to be elected president. One is you have to be able to articulate, having your own mind and articulate why you're running and what you're going to do if you're going to get elected. And then the second is, can you demonstrate the temperament to take the pressures of a campaign? Because if you can't do that, how can you take the pressures of the office? And so when you're in the middle of a primary, going to 5 states in a day, you can't be formulating why you're running. So the most important thing anyone can do right now is figure out why they're going to run and be able to articulate that. And I just remind you, as someone who was there, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, when Clinton announced in 91 and Obama announced in 07, those guys were not very good candidates. But the process of running and their ability to articulate where they wanted to lead the country happened in that first phase. And I can, for Clinton, and you were probably there, a series of speeches he gave in Cleveland and at Georgetown in the fall of 91, he really captured in his mind his ability to articulate why he was running. And the same, I think, the moment for Obama was in the 07 JJ dinner in Iowa. So what I'm looking for now is not people who can get under Trump's skin and can build Twitter followings. I'm looking at who is trying to figure out if they're going to run, why are they running, and are they coming up with a way to articulate where they want to lead the country? That's the most important thing right now.
Yeah, it is. And of course, the daily coverage and a lot of reporters focus on the exact opposite. And it's not just who would be the strongest nominee or not just who would be the strongest nominee or most likely nominee. It's also who'd be the best president, which of course the voters respond to. And it's hard in the current environment to do what you're saying, but not impossible. People could give thoughtful speeches. They could spend less time asking people what they should run on and figuring it out themselves. You think about it as
just one thing. So, when you talk about the Democrat, we have no leader of the party right now. This is what happens when you lose elections. If you remember in 2009, after Obama won, the Democrats took Congress, and the Republicans were walking around in a daze.
Yeah.
So we as a party, the only thing we as a party can do, whether it's the congressional wing or all we can do between now and the beginning of the presidential race is try to lessen the burden of a candidate running with the Democratic label. All we can do is try to make that less of a burden for the nominee. That's all we can do. We can't, as an opposition party, define who we are or where we're going. So our whole job is to make us less toxic. And one of the most important things for 2026 for Democrats is just to have, and same with the governor's races this year, is to have proof of concept that we're not so toxic that we can't win elections. But that's really the only value that we can provide for the nominee.
It isn't part of the challenge. Maybe this is wrong or too obvious to say. Part of the challenge of Trump is he knows full well what issues Democrats are more unpopular on, like crime. And he knows how to put those things front and center and force the party to either be divided or cling to what are unpopular positions.
Well, yes, but. So yes, that's true, but. So I believe we've been living in the age of Trump since 2015, when he rode down that escalator and announced his candidacy. So for 11 years, he's completely dominated American politics. We as Democrats for 11 years have not articulated a single positive agenda of where we want to take the country. It's all been about stopping Trump. And what Trump is so far has demonstrated, at least, is that he is a singular force in American politics. When he is not on the ballot, his appeal has not been transferable. And We are going to be moving out of the age of Trump with the 2028 election. It's going to be an open seat, and a lot of that race is going to be defined not by does Trump dominate the news cycle, but what is the state of America and what is the state of American economy? And that is going to be the setup. And Trump is winning most every news cycle, but ultimately his presidency and ultimately the outcome of the 2026 midterms, I think will largely be determined by the state of the country, the state of the economy, and how people feel, not whether or not he can win news cycles.
Is it too soon to size up J.D. Vance as a potential presidential candidate?
I think it's I guess in the one way it's too soon. On the other hand, I thought he was a colossal mistake when they nominated him, and I think it seemed like they had buyer's remorse. But I thought he proved to be a pretty effective candidate, and I think he's been a effective wingman as vice president. And in some ways, he can. I mean, I think that the Trumpism is mostly just an appeal to Trump. It's not really a philosophy. But to the extent that someone can articulate what does Trumpism mean, I think Vance probably does a better job of that than Trump. But I think it's far from clear if he has the kind of personal skills and ability to relate to people in the wings of the party. That's going to be the test of the campaign is the temperament. But I think he certainly, right now is best positioned of anyone in the Republican Party.
If you were an advisor to the Democratic version of Vance, a vice president who seems to have the full support of the president, chair of the RNC Finance Committee, would that be a perch from which you could consolidate a lot of advantages for 2028?
It will be, but I'll give you one prediction. It will be. And I think doing all the thankless tasks that Trump doesn't want to do, going to any meeting anywhere and meeting anybody, the funders, going out there and saying all the things that Trump wants is what Vance needs to do. And in a sense, he's going to have to be a duck, which is to say above surface, he's very calm. He's vice presidential. That's his only agenda. But beneath the surface, that duck is paddling as fast as he can. And the real challenge is going to be that Donald Trump only is focused and cares about Donald Trump. Anything that detracts from that is something that Trump will take offense to. Anytime someone starts overtly running for president above the surface, not below the surface, take 2027, Trump is going to view that as a hostile act because it's going to make him implicitly a lame duck. So I think you're going to find, when I was in the Clinton White House, when Gore started running in 1999, I mean, it was just a normal thing. You just let it go. I think that Trump will be very punitive for as long as possible to not let anyone overtly run for president because it will diminish him in office.
I want to tell you all about the Vapor Technology Association. It's an organization started nearly a decade ago to protect the rights of Americans who choose alternatives to smoking and the small businesses who have made a living using this technology. They support science-based policies and the rights of adults to make healthier choices. Did you know that many family-owned vape shops and manufacturers across the country are now under attack thanks to what are outdated Biden-era regulations that threaten to wipe out an entire industry? The Vapor Technology Association, also known as VTA, says businesses are being destroyed and people are losing their jobs. But the VTA says President Trump has a clear opportunity now to change this and to protect Americans' right to make their own choices and to defend small businesses and restore a fair and free marketplace. Head over right now to vaportechnology.org to learn more about that organization and why they are leading the charge to support American innovation. And if their mission appeals to you, consider becoming a member when you get to the site. Again, that's vaportechnology.org. And when you get there, tell them you heard about all this on Next Up.